Sean Deng is the CEO and co-founder of GRisk, an analytics and early warning platform for global risk. I asked him about the timing of the U.S. indictments against Huawei announced just before those high-level trade talks.
Well, I do agree with U.S. officials in that regard in terms of these two cases being separate issues on separate tracks, because the U.S.-China negotiations focuses primarily on trade, on investment, on industry policies, and on technology transfer, instead of on this particular legal proceeding. And if you have to consider how the Huawei case is implicating the U.S.-China negotiations, I think the main point is still the timing. If this case was announced 2 days later, after Premier Liu He's visit, the implications will be very different. It will basically become a negating factor in this whole negotiation process.
Could it have sabotaged the talks even?
Exactly.
A lot is at stake between the two biggest economies in the world, these trade talks. Do you believe they can resolve their trade dispute by March deadline, when these are the same issues that have been on the table for all this time? I mean, what has changed that gives anyone any hope or optimism that they can reach some kind of resolution?
Well, I think one major source of optimism is that both President Xi and President Trump want a trade deal. Politically, economically, I think both countries have a willingness to work together and to come together in a trade agreement. Now, if they can reach something substantive and meaningful by the March 1st deadline, I think the market agrees that there will be some positive signals coming out of the March 1st deadline. But it's not going to be everything. I think for the trade issues, it's a lot easier for China to negotiate on trade compared with on technology and on industry policy.
But part of the trade dispute, Sean, has to do with technology, like IP theft.
Well, I think for IP theft, the alleged IP theft, for China to focus on that is something that they probably would not want to do, because in any negotiation, you have several pieces on the table. You have trade, which can become a numbers game. Who's going to buy how much and of what from the counterpart. And the technology and industry policy, these are separate issues that they have to come together as a package. So I think instead of focusing on technology, it's in China's interest to focus more on trade and on resolving the trade piece first before moving into the technology piece. Even if the United States would like to tie everything together, I think it will be in China's interest to still resolve these things one by one.
What happens if there's no resolution by that March 1st deadline? Where do we go from there?
Well, I think there is a danger of no resolution by March 1st. What will happen is twofold, I think. One, China, I think, will definitely continue on its reform and opening up process to fulfill some of the promises that President Xi had already announced during the Boao Forum earlier last year. So I think that's something that China will probably continue doing. On the American side, you will definitely see more demands coming out from the White House.
More tariffs?
More tariffs, possibly, and you will also see probably more legislation coming from Congress in terms of limiting China's ability to acquire technology or limiting the American company's ability to export technology. So I think all these factors are possibilities if the March 1st truce does not hold.